All right, so get this. You know how we hear about the Arctic, like, eventually melting?
Hmm.
Well, there's this new research, and it's saying we could see an ice-free day
Wow.
in the Arctic Ocean, like, way sooner than we thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
It really is startling. We could be talking about the next decade,
Really?
maybe even as early as 3 years from now.
Hold on, wait. 3 years.
Yeah.
That's like tomorrow. How can they even, like, predict that?
Well, it's based on some pretty complex climate modeling. They're looking at daily data,
Oh.
not just the monthly averages we always hear about.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. It's not tied to a date on the calendar.
Oh.
It's 3 years from whenever that Arctic sea ice shrinks down to what we saw in 2023.
So, like, once we hit that 2023 low point again, the countdown starts.
That's basically it, yeah.
That's kind of scary, right? It makes it feel a lot more immediate.
It definitely highlights the urgency.
Yeah.
But, with any complex system, there's a bunch of possibilities.
Right.
Some models show this happening super fast,
Yeah.
but others say it could take decades.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe it won't even happen this century.
So there's a lot of, like, wait and see.
Exactly.
But I thought this was really fascinating. The study said those fastest meltdowns where the ice disappears in just a few years,
Right.
those happen across all sorts of scenarios for pollution.
That's right. So it's not just about how much we're emitting.
Okay.
Although lower emissions, that does give us more time.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like the natural changes in the climate
Yeah.
year to year, that plays a huge role.
So even if we do everything right, there's still a chance things could go bad fast?
Well, yeah, because of these natural factors.
I mean, how can we even, like, handle that kind of uncertainty?
Yeah, it's a lot to process for sure. But, it's important to understand that this doesn't mean what we do is pointless.
Right. Okay.
It just means there are multiple things happening.
I see.
Think of it like this. You're trying to walk across a frozen lake. Lower emissions are like wearing thicker boots.
Okay.
They give you more time.
Before you fall through.
Exactly, before the ice breaks. But there's always a chance, a weird current weakens the ice, and you don't know about it.
Okay, yeah. Thicker boots, less chance of falling in. But that doesn't explain those super fast meltdowns.
Right.
Like, what makes some scenarios go from ice to no ice so quickly?
Well, that's where these rapid ice loss events come in. We call them riles.
Riles.
Yeah, think of it like a dam bursting, a big drop in the sea ice.
Wow.
Happens over just a few years.
And that's in all the fast scenarios.
The research found that every scenario where the Arctic becomes ice-free really fast, they all have a rile E.
Has that ever actually happened? Like a rile?
Not a full-blown one, not like the study says,
Yeah.
but we've come close. And the thing is, the chances of it happening go up after things have been stable.
Oh.
Kind of like what we've seen lately.
So we've had this, like, calm before the possible storm, but things could speed up if we get a rile? It's a bit ominous. The study talks about 9 scenarios where the ice disappears super fast, like 3 to 6 years fast.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in those?
Well, in those scenarios, the Arctic's not just ice-free for a day, it's ice-free for almost a whole month on average.
Mhm.
And the researchers found what you might call a canary in a coal mine, a sign that a rile and an ice-free day might be coming. They say if the ice area shrinks below a certain point before September,
Okay.
we need to pay attention.
So, like, how much shrinking is too much shrinking?
The number they have is 3.39 million square kilometers.
Okay.
If it drops below that before September, that could be a bad sign.
Like the ice is trying to warn us.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so we've got these RLEs, these warning signs, but what's actually causing the ice to melt so fast? Is it something in the atmosphere?
It really comes down to the atmosphere. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine the Arctic as this giant ice cube
Okay.
just sitting out on a warm day. And now picture these blasts of hot air coming up from the south,
Oh, wow.
almost like someone's pointing a hairdryer at it,
Okay, so that's melting it from above. But I thought warm ocean currents played a role, too.
They do. But the research really focused on that warm air,
Mm-hmm.
especially during the winter and spring.
Okay.
It's like the ice gets all pre-weakened.
Before summer even starts.
Exactly, before that summer melt even gets going.
So it's getting hit from above and below then. Warm air and then warmer water. No wonder it's disappearing so fast. The study mentions some specific things that make the air warmer, right?
Right, so these warm air intrusions that they're called,
Mm-hmm.
basically they're just surges of heat coming up from the south.
Okay.
And then you've got these high pressure systems,
Yeah.
kind of like a lid over the Arctic, trapping all that warm air.
Oh, like a heat dome.
Yeah, exactly. Blocking patterns is what they call them.
So the Arctic's getting cooked from all sides. And then they also said summer storms make it worse, too.
Yeah, they do. In about 2/3 of the scenarios where the ice melts the fastest, you see a big storm right before that ice-free day hits. Think about it. You've got this ice that's already weak from that warm air, and then a storm comes along, churns up the water.
Yeah, breaks it up even more.
Exactly.
That sounds pretty bad for the ice. But, what about the bigger picture? We've talked about the science, but what does an ice-free Arctic actually, mean?
Well, that's where things get a bit concerning, I'd say. See, the Arctic isn't just some empty, icy area.
Right.
It's super important for regulating the climate of the whole world. You know that white ice, it reflects sunlight back into space?
Yeah, it keeps things cool.
Exactly. But when it melts, you're left with the dark ocean.
And that absorbs more heat.
Exactly. So things warm up even faster.
So less ice, more warming, and even less ice. It's like a loop. And we already know that all that extra heat makes the sea level rise, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just the sea level. That melting ice can really mess with ocean currents.
Oh, right.
And then you get all sorts of changes in the weather all over the globe.
Like what kind of changes?
Think bigger storms, rain patterns shifting around, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's hard to even imagine all the things that could happen. It's like one thing leads to another and the whole world changes.
It is a pretty big domino effect, yeah.
What about the animals that live up there? The ones that depend on the ice? Like polar bears, obviously, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there are lots of others.
Oh, tons. Walruses, seals, all kinds of seabirds. They all need the ice for hunting, breeding,
Right, raising their young.
Exactly. An ice-free Arctic, it would be a disaster for them. Some might be able to adapt, maybe.
But others might just.
Yeah, they could go extinct.
That's pretty sad to think about. Okay, so those are all the downsides. But I remember reading somewhere that an ice-free Arctic could also create some opportunities. I know that might sound strange.
It's true. It's complicated. There are definitely environmental problems,
Yeah.
but there are also economic and geopolitical things to consider.
Yeah. Like, well, what?
Well, for one, as the ice melts, those shipping routes through the Arctic, they open up.
Oh, right. I've heard about that.
That could mean, trade between Europe and Asia gets faster and cheaper.
So that's a good thing, right?
Well, it also raises some questions, like who controls those routes?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And how do we prevent all those ships from damaging the environment even more?
So it's a good thing and a bad thing all at the same time.
Yeah, kind of a double-edged sword. You have the potential for good, but also more risks for a system that's already really vulnerable.
And there's the whole thing about who gets to profit from the Arctic's resources, too.
Exactly.
It seems like, is there even a way to balance all of that?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's a super complex problem. It needs international cooperation, sustainable practices, and everyone needs to agree that the planet is more important than just making money right now.
It feels like this is about way more than just the science. It's about ethics and politics and being responsible for future generations.
Absolutely. The future of the Arctic is totally tied to the choices we make today.
So welcome back to our deep dive into, the future of the Arctic.
Mhm.
It's been quite a journey, I'd say.
Yeah, no kidding.
We started off with that projection, a possible ice-free day in, 3 years?
Yeah, crazy, right?
If we hit those 2023 ice levels again.
Right.
Then we got into all the science behind those fast meltdowns, the R owls.
Like a dam breaking.
Yeah, and all the stuff happening in the atmosphere, too.
Right, all connected. And then we started talking about what a world without Arctic ice would even look like.
Yeah, the consequences, like rising seas, messed up weather, and all that.
And what it means for the animals up there and, even geopolitics.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And that brings us back to that question, like, what does an ice-free Arctic even mean for us, for the whole planet?
Yeah.
It's one thing to, get the science, but it's another to really understand what it means for humans.
I think there's something almost philosophical about it,
Oh, yeah.
The Arctic's always been this, mythical place for us. It's so remote, so untouched.
Yeah, like the last true wilderness.
Exactly. And now we're saying it could change forever. On a time scale, it's hard to even grasp.
It makes you think about the power we have, our
Yeah.
impact on the planet.
For sure. What we do, the choices we make, they don't just affect us, they shape everything.
Yeah, whole ecosystems, the planet itself, and for like generations to come.
It's a big responsibility to think that we could be the ones who decide whether the Arctic ice survives or not.
It's a bit daunting.
No doubt. But, it can also be empowering, I think,
How so?
because this isn't just a story about loss.
Yeah.
It's a story about choices. We still have the power to choose a path that protects the Arctic, that makes the worst parts of climate change less bad.
So what can we actually do? It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
You're right, it's a huge problem, and it needs global solutions. But that doesn't mean that what individuals do is pointless.
Okay.
It starts with, being aware, educating ourselves and others about the Arctic, about how everything on the planet is connected.
And then using that knowledge to push for change, right? Like better policies, stuff like
Oh,
that.
absolutely. We need to support leaders who are fighting for climate action, who care about the planet more than quick profits. We need to hold those big companies accountable too. And in our own lives, we need to make good choices. What we buy, how we travel, everything makes a difference.
It's about changing the way we think, I guess. Realizing we're not separate from nature, we're a part of it.
Exactly. We're all interconnected. What happens to the Arctic happens to us. And when we protect the Arctic, we're protecting ourselves, our future.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Of course, it's been great.
It's been eye-opening, to say the least. And to our listeners, I hope this has made you think, made you curious, maybe even given you a little hope.
The Arctic is an amazing place. It's definitely worth fighting for. And the more we understand it, the better choices we can make.
There's still time to act, to choose a path that keeps this precious place alive for future generations. And you want to learn more, we've got links to the research and other stuff in the show notes. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep talking about it. Because in the end, the future of the Arctic, it's in our hands.